They had #1 hits. They toured the world. They were on television, on the radio, in every magazine, and today almost no one remembers their names. These weren't small-time garage acts. These were massive bands that dominated the charts and then vanished. Why did they disappear? What went wrong? And how does a band go from everywhere to erased? Let's uncover the 10 incredible 60s rock bands that time completely erased.
Wouldn't believe me when I gave advice.
The Beau Brummels were formed in San Francisco in early 1964, just as the British invasion was reshaping American radio. Their sound stood out for its blend of folk rock rhythms and vocal harmonies, capturing attention with their debut single, Laugh, Laugh, which reached number 15 on the Billboard Hot 100. Produced by a young Sylvester Stewart, later known as Sly Stone, the band helped define a new West Coast sound before the psychedelic era took hold. They became one of the first American groups to respond creatively to the British influence without imitating it. Their second hit, Just a Little, peaked at number 8 and showcased their melancholic tone and tight songwriting. This originality gave them a brief but respected status among critics and peers during a time of rapid musical change. In 1968, the band traveled to Nashville and recorded Bradley's Barn, a pioneering country rock album that predated similar moves by more famous groups. Despite the innovation, poor promotion and internal issues prevented the record from gaining traction. The Beau Brummels quietly faded from the spotlight, leaving behind a catalog that inspired many, yet never reached mainstream longevity. The Hollies emerged from Manchester in 1962 and quickly became known for their vocal precision and upbeat pop rock style. With Alan Clark and Graham Nash leading the harmonies, the group found early success with a string of UK hits before breaking internationally with Bus Stop in 1966. The song, written by Graham Gouldman, gave the band a global audience and defined their clean, melodic sound. They remained a chart presence through the 60s, releasing hits like Carrie Ann and On a Carousel, which showcased their layered arrangements and tight production. Even after Nash left the group in late 1968 to form Crosby, Stills and Nash, the Hollies recorded what would become their most emotional and enduring single, He Ain't Heavy, He's My Brother, tracked at Abbey Road Studios. Despite having over 30 charting singles across more than a decade, the band's legacy was largely eclipsed by more controversial or experimental acts of their era. Though their music continues to be respected among collectors and historians, the Hollies' name rarely comes up in mainstream retrospectives of 60s rock. The Grassroots started in Los Angeles as a studio project created by producers P.F. Sloan and Steve Barry in 1965. Originally intended to showcase their songwriting, the project evolved into a touring band after Rob Grill joined as lead vocalist. His presence helped transform the group into a hit-making machine that bridged pop rock with elements of folk and soul. Between 1967 and 1972, the Grassroots scored 14 top 40 hits, including Let's Live for Today, Midnight Confessions, and Sooner or Later. Known for their radio-friendly sound and catchy choruses, the band maintained a relentless touring schedule, performing more than 300 shows annually during their peak years. Despite their commercial success, the band was often seen as a product of the industry machine rather than a creative force. This perception, along with internal tensions and changing musical tastes, led to their slow disappearance from public consciousness. Maybe you have heard the Grassroots song without realizing it was them. Let us know below if the song we played for you rang some bells or if you want to go and check them out. The Yardbirds formed in London in 1963 and quickly made a name for themselves as a blues-influenced group with a taste for experimentation. Their biggest legacy lies in their guitar lineup, which included Eric Clapton, Jeff Beck, and Jimmy Page, three of rock's most influential musicians. Each brought a unique style that pushed the band's sound into new territories. While Clapton kept the band grounded in blues, Beck introduced distortion and feedback techniques that shaped early psychedelic rock. When Page joined in 1966, the group's live sound became heavier and more ambitious, setting the stage for what would later become Led Zeppelin. Their hits like For Your Love, Shapes of Things, and Heartful of Soul marked a clear evolution in British rock. The group quietly disbanded after their final show at Luton Technical College in July of 1968. That fall, Page formed a new band to fulfill contractual obligations, which he originally called the New Yardbirds, a group that would soon be renamed Led Zeppelin. Formed in Boise, Idaho in the late 1950s, Paul Revere and the Raiders became a national sensation by the mid-60s, blending garage rock energy with television-ready charisma. By 1965, they were appearing daily on ABC's Where the Action Is, which reached millions of households across the United States. Their colonial outfits and high-energy performances turned them into one of the most visible rock bands on American television. The band was also a chart force. Between 1965 and 1969, they released a string of successful singles including Kicks, Hungry, and Good Thing, working closely with producer Terry Melcher. Their music often carried social messages hidden behind upbeat instrumentation, and their performances balanced rebellion with polished showmanship. Despite their fame, the band struggled to evolve with the rapidly shifting musical landscape. Their image, once a marketing strength, eventually became a limitation. As harder, more experimental rock gained popularity, the group's television-friendly look and sound faded from favor. By the early 70s, they had nearly vanished from the charts and the spotlight.
Find her, she's not there. The way she acts and the color of her hair.
The Zombies were formed in St. Albans, England in 1961 by schoolmates Rod Argent and Colin Blunstone. They rose to fame with She's Not There in 1964, a haunting mix of jazz chords and breathy vocals that stood apart from the typical British invasion sound. The song climbed to number 2 on the Billboard charts, giving them international exposure early in their career. After several modest singles, they recorded Odessey and Oracle in 1967 at Abbey Road Studios. The album was made on a tight budget of just £1,000 and featured the same Mellotron keyboard later used on Strawberry Fields Forever. Although the band broke up shortly after recording it, the track Time of the Season unexpectedly became a hit in the United States in 1969, reaching number 3. By the time their biggest song topped the charts, the Zombies no longer existed as a working band. This strange twist left them as one of the only groups to achieve their greatest success after disbanding. Today, Odessey and Oracle is considered a classic, but their name remains obscure to most casual listeners. The Tremolos began as a beat group in Dagenham, England, and first gained attention when they were signed by Decca Records in 1962, instead of the Beatles. They built a strong following in the UK, and their version of Here Comes My Baby marked their breakthrough in 1967, kicking off a string of international hits. Later that same year, they released Silence is Golden, which topped the charts in the UK and reached number 11 in the US. Their ability to harmonize tightly and work quickly in the studio set them apart. At the peak of their momentum, they recorded 8 songs in a single day on Denmark Street, a legendary music hub in London's West End. Despite their success, the band didn't manage to stay relevant into the 70s. Musical trends shifted quickly, and their upbeat vocal pop sound soon fell out of style. Though they continued performing for years, their name quietly disappeared from the mainstream conversation. Now that you know the story, honestly, would you have picked them over the Beatles? Drop your take in the comments. I'm curious what you'd have done.
bundle of joy. And them down, isn't it a pity? Doesn't seem to be a shadow in the city.
The Lovin' Spoonful came together in Greenwich Village, New York, in 1965, blending folk roots with a bright, radio-friendly sound. Led by John Sebastian, the band became known for capturing the carefree vibe of the era with songs like Do You Believe in Magic and Daydream. Their music stood out for its mix of traditional American styles and clever production. In just over 2 years, they scored 7 top 10 hits, including the gritty and experimental Summer in the City, which showcased unusual sound design for the time. Their success was fast and overwhelming, but internal issues and lineup changes began to take a toll. Guitarist Zal Yanovsky's departure in late 1967 marked the beginning of their decline. Though they had a brief run, the Lovin' Spoonful left a strong impression on 60s pop. Still, their name doesn't get the same attention as many of their peers, even with a catalog full of enduring songs.
I don't know how many times I wish that I had told you. Asked you to spend your whole life.
The association formed in Los Angeles in 1965 and quickly gained recognition for their sophisticated vocal arrangements. Unlike many of their contemporaries, they focused heavily on harmony, often recording over 100 studio hours per album to perfect 6-part vocal layers. Their breakout hit Cherish spent 3 weeks at #1 on the Billboard chart in 1966, setting the tone for their polished orchestral sound. Follow-up hits like Windy and Never My Love solidified their place in the American pop scene, each reaching high chart positions and showcasing their complex musical approach. Their clean-cut image and technical precision earned them a spot opening the Monterey Pop Festival in 1967, a major cultural event that helped define the decade's musical evolution. Despite the success, their style eventually fell out of sync with the growing appetite for raw, more experimental rock. As the 60s closed, the association's smooth, harmony-driven sound became less fashionable, and their mainstream visibility faded.
But always strong to protect.
The Turtles started as a surf rock band called the Crossfires before shifting toward pop in 1965. Their early success came with a cover of It Ain't Me Babe, which reached #8 on the Billboard chart. But their defining moment came in 1967, when Happy Together knocked the Beatles' Penny Lane off the #1 spot and held it for 3 weeks. Known for their playful energy and airtight vocal harmonies, the Turtles seemed poised for a long career. However, behind the scenes, legal battles with their label led to an unusual outcome. They lost the rights to their own name. By 1970, core members Howard Kaylan and Mark Volman were forced to perform under the pseudonym Flo and Eddie, essentially erasing the band's original identity. While Happy Together remains one of the most recognizable songs of the decade, the Turtles as a group slowly disappeared from mainstream memory. Their story stands as one of the strangest examples of how the music business can bury even a massive success. And just like that, 10 bands that lit up the 60s and then slipped through the cracks kind of makes you wonder how many other names got lost in the noise, right? If any of these groups caught you by surprise, hit the comments. We want to know which one made you stop and think, how have I never heard of them? And hey, if you're diving into any of their songs for the first time, let us know which one hits hardest. If you enjoyed this, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's coming next. We've got way more music stories headed your way.